Hi and welcome to a short lecture on the DAW, the Digital Audio Workstation. Actually a term that I don't think became popular until the early 2000s. To map the story of the DAW, we need to start in the late 80s. No, this is not a Stranger Things episode. The music of the era was much more pop. C-Lab was a small German software company and their product was Creator. It was released in 1987, followed by Notator the following year. The price was around £500, which is about twice the sum today. The software was running on an Atari 1040. Other popular music programs on the same platform was Cubase Jones, Dr. T, Intelligent Music, to mention a few. However, Notator was the ruler. Atari 1040 was the chosen music machine as it had inbuilt MIDI connections. C-Lab also offered a MIDI expansion port seen at the top right of this picture. This unit also had a slot for the dongle.
Pirating software by copying the floppy disk was common, so nothing's new under the sun.
By the early 90s, when Nirvana was topping the chart, most sequencers had ported to the Mac platform, and C-Lab had changed name to MPiC, and the software was now called Logic, and no Pro just yet though. Audio recording was just in its infancy, and we're a long way from in-the-box mixing. We're actually still 7 years away from the release of Livin' La Vida Loca, which was the first #1 song fully mixed in Pro Tools. Mac computers at the time were running the System 7 operating software, and notice the heading Total Memory on the right hand side. That's the RAM. I'll let you do the maths, you might want to sit down for the answer. A few years earlier, DigiDesign had released its SoundTools stereo editor and the audio media card that allowed for 2 tracks to be recorded. In '92, this had expanded to 4 tracks, and all music software relied on this for handling audio. The audio connector sat directly on the cards, as you can see on the right-hand side of the picture here, although audio interfaces were just around the corner. As track counts in software was severely limited, it was about 4 or 5 tracks on a good day, most people recording on tape, although a cheaper and very popular choice were ADAT recorders. They allowed digital recording up to 8 channels at once on a VHS-style cassettes. You can ask your parents about what that was. This format actually still echoes, as the digital connector are still alive and well and included in many audio interfaces, here pictured on the Audient ID series. 96 was, to give a tired phrase some justice, a game changer. This was the year Steinberg released the VST standard and the developer kit that came with Cubase that year. This allowed third-party manufacturers to create audio plugins and instruments. As this was an open standard, third-party manufacturers could develop plugins, and early adopters were Native Instruments, Mac DSP, and of course the industry standard at the time, Waves. Another milestone came in 1997 when a small Swedish company called Propellerheads released Recycle. This was a revolution, as it allowed you to stretch time and rearrange loops non-destructively. Previously, you had to pitch the sample up and down to match the tempo of your song, or use time stretch functionality in your sampler, something that usually sounded pretty bad and took a long time to process. Ableton Live took this step further in 2001 and simply incorporated the concept into the actual DAW. This is of course a functionality that is common in most DAWs nowadays. It's also worth mentioning Antares Autotune that was released in '97, a software that was originally intended for the oil industry to detect seismic waves. The same year as Live was released, we saw the first glimpse of Melodyne at Spring NAMM. We'll be covering both of these softwares later this year.
Nowadays there are of course numerous DAWs, and even trackers have had a comeback. What was your first DAW?